Cup.
Is enough for Collingwood. Centennial Cup champions in 2024.
What's going on, everyone? This is the OJ All Access Podcast. I'm Alex Bachevansky. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week. And we have got a lot to talk about today. That's putting it mildly. OJHL Commissioner Marty Savoy is going to join me to discuss the landmark decision that went down last week that will soon see CHL players be allowed to play NCAA Division I hockey. How will that affect the OJHL? We will chat all about it. Also, Brock Ormond will join me. He is the play-by-play man for your TV, who covers both the Trenton Golden Hawks and the Wellington Dukes. We'll go over how those teams have done so far this season and who some of their big performers have been. But first, there's really only been one topic dominating the world of junior and college hockey since our last show went off the air last week. On Thursday, the NCAA voted to allow CHL major junior players to suit up for Division I hockey teams beginning next season. It cannot be stressed just how massive this is, and there are several big questions now as a result of it, including how will it affect Junior A hockey across North America, really, but more specifically for us, how it will affect the Ontario Junior Hockey League. And joining me now to talk about all these latest developments is the OJHL's Commissioner, Marty Savoy. Marty, very busy times, busy week to put it lightly, but how are things going?
Outstanding, Alex. It's great to finally join the podcast here. We've had tons of positive response on this, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, okay, we're going to get to the CHL NCAA thing in just a second, but let's take a deep breath first and ask just an important question here. You know, the league, the new season, just over 2 months in now. How do you feel things have gone so far this year?
I think it's been really good. We started off the season with having a showcase in a new location in Niagara Falls under Brandon Moon and Frank Pietrangelo with Rick Morocco from our office. We saw an all-time high in scouts. All-time high on attendance figures and whatnot. So we started the season really, really strong. We've got some high-end young kids coming through. Our new initiative that we created last year, our Director of Player Safety, Greg Kimberly, has done an outstanding job this season on the player safety side of things. Our social media numbers are all up. Everything across the league just seems to be trending in the right way for us. So it's been a really exciting start to the season.
Yeah, definitely a good start. Great to see the competitive balance in the East and the West. And of course, we've got, you know what, actually, I can't let this slide by without really quickly getting you to comment on just Collingwood winning it all last year. Fantastic for the league, fantastic for the organization, who've been such a great story since coming into the league a few years ago.
Yeah, and when you host the event, the last time we hosted in Coburg, we won as well. And it's special to kind of do it when you do it in your home facility within the league. And it's just, being at the rink, the effort that the host committee first put into the event, but what the Collingwood Blues did, winning in a tight game in the national championship on TV, 1-0, just the excitement from the players, after the game and during the game, and the staff and everybody around, from Dave Steele, Mike Tarantino, all the way down to the coaching staff. It's fun to be part of that stuff. I've been to, I think, 19 or 20 national championships, and it's just a lot more fun when one of your teams kind of captures it. But just the excitement you see on the players' faces is just pretty unbelievable to see. Just how enthusiastic there's very few national championships. I believe there's only 3 from a Hockey Canada standpoint. This group of young men got together and achieved what their ultimate goal is, to win a national championship. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of excitement to see what they can do. And now the question on their table is, can they repeat?
Yeah, and 3-peat of Buckland. So it should be fun to watch. So let's get to it. The big news from last week that everyone is talking about last Thursday, to recap once again, the NCAA voted to open up Division I hockey to Canadian Hockey League players effective August 1st of 2025. First, just give us your thoughts on the decision.
I think it's long overdue. One of the things we brand our league is League of Choice. And so when you look at choice of the athlete now, the choice of the athlete is opened up. We've probably heard about this for a while coming down the pipe here, and for them now to kind of make the switch now, when you're looking from a player standpoint, I went through it as a player. A lot of players go through it when you're 16 years of age. You're trying to make that decision of protecting your rights because might go here, you might go there. So that's off the table now. So they can try to play in the best leagues that they want to play in and make decisions what's best for the development of the athlete. And so I applaud them for doing it. And I think what you see the response from most junior leagues north of the border is that everybody's pretty excited at what's going to happen in the decision that they finally made.
So for years, Junior A hockey was the route to playing NCAA hockey in Canada and in the United States. The CHL, or Major Junior as we call it, their players were banned from playing due to the fact that they received like a small stipend each month. But because of that, they were deemed to be professional players by the NCAA. So this made leagues like the OJHL, Junior A leagues, very attractive to players because they could keep their eligibility, still play high-level hockey, then go down to the NCAA. Now that they can play in the CHL and still go to the NCAA, though, so this is the million-dollar question, what effect do you feel it's going to have on the OJHL?
I think what you're going to see is, a lot of people are asking that question from all levels of the impact. And until we live it through a full season, I don't think we're going to understand 100% of the impact. So where a lot of us are speculating right now. But what I personally believe, it's going to make our league stronger. It's you're going to have players. We're fortunate of where we're located, kind of the hockey mecca of the world, and our player pool is so large. Is that so a player now that will be going into the OHL that's going to try to get a part of an NCAA scholarship they're going to want to do. The next level player will probably get dropped down to our league, and so our pool of stronger players overall could increase. Are we still going to get, like the Simon Wangs of this year drafted from our league? Maybe not. But maybe in the long run, there'll be more players that move on to levels like the National Hockey League that come through our league because of it. So I think in the long run, when you look at the development of the athlete, which we're all here for, as much as we all try to promote our leagues and everything, is that all of the leagues are here to develop the athlete. I think this is a really good move. And so the impact on our league is that we're going to be part of a process that's going to help develop better players and allow the players to make choices on their development. And that's right for them at the right levels and whatnot. So I think at the end of the day, our league is going to get stronger. We're fortunate that we're in more OHL markets or CHL markets than any other league in the country, which is a positive for us. So we look at that as well. I think we probably could get younger. You see a younger player come through our league, probably a lot of it, try to develop them to move on. So I think at the end of the day, who knows what's going to happen? But I think we're going to be probably stronger than we are today.
Thanks, buddy. You just took my next question. But so I'll expand on that because I was going to say, you can call it a trickle-down effect, but you're going to see so many really, really good players from all over North America. The CHL has reasserted its dominance because the USHL was making a pretty strong case over the last few years, and they offered, obviously, the fact that kids could keep their NCAA eligibility. Well, now, every article that I've read, every podcast that I've watched is about how the CHL, unquestionably, if they'd ever lost it, which I don't think they had, but they are just unquestionably the number one league once again. And we've already started seeing players leave the USHL, leave the BCHL, come back to the OHL. I think you're going to see more of that. And as more and more of that happens, you're going to start to see some really, really good players from the CHL who all of a sudden can't get a roster spot anymore. And like you talked about, the spinoff effect is that could mean more of that high-end talent in the OJHL. But yes, I think that to me is the spinoff of it. And like you mentioned, we are in the most fertile hockey territory on the planet. There's enough good hockey players to go around.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Alex, is that like the OHL, if we can all boast of why we think leagues are better than other leagues. But if you look at the stats, the OHL produces more National Hockey League players than any other in the world. And so we're lucky that's the league that's within our province that we get to work with and moving forward. So that elite hockey player is going to come back and say, okay, I want to play in the best league. And the best league out there right now is the OHL. So if you're a 16, 17-year-old athlete that has a commitment, looking to get a commitment or part of your path, like these are pathways that kids get involved with from their development, try to make it. Every one of them are looking to make the National Hockey League. So what happens now is that pathway just becomes a little bit more open of what they could do to see what they have to get there. So what happens is that you might have a 16-year-old that decides I want to play a couple of years in the OHL, then goes on to the NCAA. They can do that now, and depending on their path. And this is where, you know, the junior A level is for late bloomers as well. You know, we have a kid, Trevor Hoskins, that's ripping up the NCAA right now. That wasn't really on the radar of a lot of people. He gets drafted in the National Hockey League, so you're still going to see that stuff. But I believe that the best players will be attracted to the best leagues, and the OHL is probably, you know, obviously one of the three best, but probably one of the best in the CHL as well. So they're going to attract players, I believe, from all over the world. They're going to want to play in that league. And so there's only 25 spots on 20 teams, and those players then will trickle down, hopefully, to the OJ.
Well, even Simon Wang is being talked about as a possible second-round draft pick. When we had him on the show 2 weeks ago, he mentioned, NCAA eligibility was one of the reasons why he wanted to play in the OJ, but also he wasn't ready for the OHL yet, exactly what you're saying. Like he mentioned, he's a late bloomer. I mean, the guy's 6'7", 215 pounds. And, you know, it takes a while for the bigger players to grow into their body. And I mean, the guy's pretty phenomenal for being, you know, a 17-year-old guy who can do what he can do already. But he even talks about himself as a late bloomer and says the OJHL was a perfect fit for him in that regard. So anyway, it's cool to see those, you know, what's going to transpire. When did you guys first get an inkling that this was going to happen? Because I know it was as much as last February, I believe February of 2024 was when it first started leaking out that this was a possibility due to pending lawsuits or things like that. But had you guys thought about this as a distinct possibility for quite a while, even before then?
Yeah, I guess trying to think how far back it would have been on our radar for something that our senior management would be discussing. But approximately probably about 2 years ago, our senior leadership team, made up of governors and senior staff, probably about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, really put it on our map to start looking at the potential, if it did happen, the impacts of it. And with that there's so many different possibilities. So we've probably been looking really closely for about 2 years now, really get into it hard the last, 12 to 18 months. We start hearing down and it would take, we knew it would take probably a lawsuit to move the NCAA. You look at the nil that's going on in the NCAA, we figured with what's happening with that,
just a matter of time.
There's so many professional athletes and other sports in the NCAA. Hockey would catch up. Hockey was unique because of the D1 conference commissioners that kind of make the decision outside. Mm-hmm. And then when the NCAA flipped over to the 26-man rosters with the 26 scholarships, we thought it'd be coming pretty quick. And then the lawsuit happened, and then it came quickly. So probably about 2 years, I'd say, knowing more as we got closer and closer, we really started to dive into the data of everything.
D1 college hockey are the big winners in all this. They are going to get an influx of talent like they've never had before now. And if I was a coach, I'd be pretty excited about it. One quick thing we do have to point out, though, is this is for Division I hockey. It's not for D3. And the OJ has always been a pretty good league when it comes to producing D3 talent as well. So, I mean, certainly a positive for the league there.
Yeah, it's one of the things that will D3 go there? Nobody knows, but it was the big one is the D1 athlete they're going to go to. So will we see more of the junior A player going D3? Maybe. There's not as many scholarship opportunities at the D3 level, but now they're going to be looking at a different player. It's even the NCAA schools. Like, people are forgetting the discussions of the portal and all of this as well. There's been a lot of changes in the landscape of NCAA sports as a whole that's going to have an impact on this.
Yeah. One thing before we move on to just general league news, Junior Hockey Summit happened in late October, and you were saying this is the first time. I'm going to let you actually explain why this was such a big deal and what came out of this.
So I've been doing this now, I don't want to age myself, probably 30 years. I'm involved in as administrator in the game, started my days in Hockey Canada, and I don't remember when all the junior leagues in this province got in one room about anything. And including our three branches. We're a very complex province. We have more junior leagues, more players. And what we decided is, after what happened with the Western development model they did because of what's going on with the NCAA, is that we all got in a room. So the OHL, the junior A leagues, the junior B leagues, the junior C leagues, we were all in one room And it was all based around the development of the athlete, because we have to look at a different way we develop our players in this province. And it really wasn't about which league is better than what league. It wasn't about what the OJ can do better than the CCHL. It was how could we develop the athlete better. We struck some committees now to move forward, and I think you're going to see in the next little while a new development model. And so you talk about the impact of the NCAA now is that the OHL and Junior A are going to work closely together in how to develop that athlete right now. So you talked about players that have chosen the OJHL because of their development is a little bit slower than others. What we're looking at is around regulations of games can play, how players can move up and down, how they're evaluated when they move up and down, what support they get to improve their individual tactics and their individual skills, all of that type of stuff that it's never happened on this level of collaboration before. And that's when you talk about what's coming out of the NCAA thing, to me, that's the biggest impact that's going to have on the athlete is that the leagues are now going to work together to make the player better.
Right. Positive development for the kids overall, and that's the main thing, right? The more pass available, the better. Let's switch to just a little bit of league news here. I want to point out the big news from the weekend. Gavin Betts, Pickering Panthers goalie, winning gold for Canada White at the World Under-17 Challenge. Just a great performance by Gavin. He was also named to the tournament all-star team, Marty, but great representation for the OJHL and great performance by the kid.
Well, we always say, we want to promote the league and everything like that. We do that through success of our players. And when we have a kid like Gavin that can go out there and get named to the team, which we very rarely have U17 kids named to the team, and then plays a role, and then plays good hockey, and then plays the lead hockey, and then is the standout of the event. Like you see some of the highlights of what that young man did and everything for his career. It's really exciting for him as an athlete and a player, for his family first and foremost, but the Pickering Panthers and for the OJ. It's just a great story to see that kid. And around the goaltender, it's a good example of a 16-year-old goaltender that he's probably playing at the right level right now. Yep. And I believe his rights are owned by Kingston, and so hopefully that we've helped develop that player a little bit now, and he can go and have the same type of success the rest of the season here and in Kingston as well. But it's just a great story. And so one of the fun things that we get to be involved with in the game.
Yeah, he's just 16 years old. I'm sure we're going to see him on this list next year. But the NHL recently releasing its players to watch list for the 2025 draft, and 5 current OJ players on that list. I think it's the most directly out of the league for a few years, though. Marty, you and I were racking our brain before we went on air trying to think about it. But directly out of the league, and there's also like a ton more that have had some association with the OJHL that will get drafted. But directly out of the league, I think that's the most in a few years. But it's just, once again, great story.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how the showcase was one of our most attended by scouts, and I think that's one of the reasons. We have a lot of really good young players this year. I know 5 are on the list. We're hearing there's another probably a half dozen are on a list that could jump on that list. Our teams have done a really good, and a lot of it's when you look at the model, what minor hockey does in this province to develop these kids as well. But we do have, you're saying, I don't think that we might have had 6 or 7 one year, but to have 5 on the list and to have,
it was a few years ago though.
Have a B-rated player in Simon Wang is really good for our level of play here as well. And it's again, it goes to show the level of play and where this ends up going down the road with the NCAA stuff, who knows? But it's exciting to have that many kids at that level, and it just, like I say, it bodes well for the kind of talent that's coming out of this province.
For sure, a big event coming up next week, which is definitely going to be great for getting these scouts out, is the CCHL OJHL All-Star Game in Smiths Falls. Going to be great for scouts, going to be great for these for the players. I mean, the 2 rosters that the league came out with are stacked. And there's no age restriction, so we get to see a Colton Smith out there. We get to see some real big guns. But how did you guys come up with this in the first place, the collaboration between the CCHL and the OJ?
Well, the 2 leagues are very similar in so many different ways. And so we just got talking in the off season about this was done probably 15 years ago before I started. There was a Battle of Ontario. And so that came up and said, what would happen if the 2 leagues got together? So we approached a number of different scouts of what they wanted to see amongst the 2 leagues kind of going against each other. And then would it be an all-star challenge against the 2? And then we said, no, we probably should highlight our prospects as well. And it led into that. We had decided that, Smith Falls would probably be the best location for the first year to do it, because it's kind of a neutral in between the 2 territories of the 2 leagues. And it kind of morphed morphed in from that to where we were at. We just got off a call here for another about an hour and a half, getting all the logistics around it and everything. So we're pretty excited to go in and play them. CCHL is a very strong league. They have some really great talent in that. And we go into the event as much as it's a tournament type of a thing that you're going to declare. The prospects won't have a champion and whatnot. Both leagues kind of go into it. We're here to showcase the talent for best.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's fun. The 220-minute periods, I'm not sure people realize it, is that it's so intense because they don't have the third period to make up for the mistakes that happen. So it's a ton of fun to watch.
They don't have to worry about expending energy either. They can just go all out the entire time. Before I let you go, Marty, on the first show, Ron Valentine surprised the heck out of me because I'm no longer in Streetsville anymore, but the big history, of course, to the league is me, as I grew up a Streetsville Derbys fan, which were Central Ontario Junior B powerhouse. That league, of course, merged with the Metro Junior League in the early 90s and became what is now the OJHL. So a ton of history in Streetsville. Then the team merged with the Cobourg Cougars in the 2009 or 2010, I believe it was. And they were no more. And it was a great hockey tradition that was gone. They haven't had a junior team since. Ron tells me out of nowhere on the show that the Derbys, who are, it should be pointed out, Marty Savoy's old team that he played for, along with the Blades, I believe, too, right?
Yeah.
The Blades, yeah. Going back a couple of decades, but you were a Derby guy. You have fond memories of it. And Ron lets me know, that they now have a junior team back in Streetsville, but it's a junior C team. And I wanted to ask you the question. I mean, that's right in the OJHL's territory, obviously. It's right in Mississauga, but I love it. I think the fact that they've got junior hockey there again at the old Vic is fantastic. But what are your thoughts on this? And I mean, were you guys involved in this process at all?
Yeah, now you're dating me, Alex, going back to my playing days. But yeah, you're right. It was interesting the way it rolled out. So we have a strong relationship with the PJHL and their commissioner, Terry Whiteside. We, as commissioners, share a lot of internal stuff that would be boring to the normal person, but to us, it's really important. And he called me up one day and said, Marty, we have an application here to go into Streetsville. And I know it's in your footprint and everything like that. And it was, kind of like, get your thoughts. We don't want to have an argument, whatever it is. Would you guys support it and everything? So we go through our normal process, but I'm like, Terry, absolutely. And I was like, what are they going to name it? Because if you're going to do it, you got to call them the Derbies. I don't know how you would put it. Alex, you lived there. I don't know how you'd put a team in there and have any chance of success and call them something but the Derbies, like the old Derby Den and everything. And it was, yep. And so, yeah, they said, yeah, for sure. And so we welcome it with open arms and anything we could do from them. And it's just, I think the name was owned originally by the Cobourg Cougars from the merger. We had to go through that process of dating back. And I think it was actually,
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, of course, because Cobourg did absorb the franchise, but Cobourg had to give their blessing for the Derby name. It was actually
Mark Mercier that owned it because he owned the team at the time. He was now the chair of the OHA and gave his blessing to it. It was one of those things that was like, it was like, really, you're going to do it? Like, let me know how I can help. Like, it's just like, every now and then you get the fun stuff in the game, and to have the Derbies back, it's awesome.
Great. Okay, I'm not going to keep you much longer. Just one more thing. I was trying to remember how long you'd been commissioner for, because we've talked forever on this stuff. 2009. I mean, wow. I remember your Derby days going way, way back. We're talking like, over 30 years, but 2009, since then you've been the commish. You've seen a lot of changes. I remember, of course, the league contracting at one point, reducing the amount of teams to try to increase, the quality of play in the league. Tons of players have been sent on to that next level over your time. You've seen a lot of changes and a lot of things happen in the league. But of all your time in the league since 2009, is what's going on right now with the NCAA and the CHL, and then of course the junior hockey summit that was had. Is this the most seismic change that's occurred to junior hockey, and at the very least your time since you've been commissioner of the OJHL?
It's a great question, Alex. I think it is. When you look at the overall reach of the impact of what's happening, contraction impacted the OJ probably more than most, and the other things that you're probably, I don't want to say siloed, but it impacts maybe one or two leagues. This one here impacts every league. It impacts athletes from 13, 14 years of age when they're trying to hit a pathway, what they're going to do, all the way up into the way they're going to enter the National Hockey League. And the biggest thing that's different that I haven't seen, like I said earlier, is that I really get a sense in this province right now that everybody wants to work together, and not for the betterment of the OJ or the OHL or for the CCHL. We want to do it for the betterment of the athlete. And that's the seismic shift, is that it really, I sat in a room with the leaders across the province from a branch level, and everyone's, there's rules and regulation. And I was like, let's put that aside and talk about the athlete themselves and how can we make them better. And make that this province has the best way to develop the athletes. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it probably is one of the biggest things we've ever done.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. And I agree. And I think it's exciting overall. It's exciting. It's been exciting seeing some of the guys now that are coming back to the OHL as well. Ontario kids who felt that they had to leave the province and now are able to do it in their own backyard. So pretty cool to watch. But listen, thanks a ton. It's the first time we've actually had a chance to do a Zoom in a couple of years at least. So great having you on. Have a great time at the event next week. What's that?
The podcast is great. It's such a great vehicle. I know the kids have been talking about a lot in the league. And as always, you do such an awesome job for us. You're so dialed.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. I missed doing the OJ today, but this is actually such a way more personal thing. Like being able to really get in depth about stuff without like a time limit on it, and be able to have in-depth conversations like with yourself and the players and everything like that. So it's been a lot of fun. Have a great time at the event next week in Smiths Falls. I know you guys always will. Say hi to Mr. Morocco. And we'll do this again later on in the season, Marty. Thanks a ton.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Lesson, Paul.
Yeah, it's great to have Marty on to get his perspective on what's certainly an unprecedented time in junior hockey across Canada. Moving on now, the Eastern Conference is shaping up to be a dogfight this season. Maybe one of the most competitive campaigns we've seen in some time. And to nobody's surprise, the Trenton Golden Hawks are once again in the running for the Buckland Cup. And I am so happy now to be joined by Brock Ormond, who does the play-by-play for your TV for both the Wellington Dukes and the Trenton Golden Hawks. I've listened to his stuff for years. Brock, you do a great job. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Alex. Glad to be on with you.
So I had Marty Savoy on the show earlier, and I'm just going to start. We'll do this quick because Marty and I went over this in detail, but I want to get your thoughts as a broadcaster who follows the league closely, obviously, on this new CHL, NCAA Division One. What has transpired over the last week with the vote going down? Just give your thoughts on how you think, as somebody who's independent from the league, even though you cover it, but what are your thoughts on how it's going to affect the OJHL and Junior A hockey in general?
Yeah, it's there's going to be certainly a changing of the guard for sure, and you talk about all the great players in the OJHL and in all sorts of leagues. Hearing a lot that it seems like the USHL, the BCHL, as well as the U Sports level, university hockey in Canada, may get hurt the most. But I'm sure for the OJHL, there's a few Division I players that may consider making the move up to a CHL or what have you, while still keeping their Division I commitment. But overall, I don't believe there's going to be a huge exodus from the league. There's going to be a couple players across the league that mainly are committed to Division I already that may consider making the move to a league like the OHL. I know there's guys that have been drafted, and I know on my local teams, like Trenton, for instance, has Jacob Zhu, who's committed to Harvard University, as well as Joey Bremer, who's committed to Lake Superior State, Matt Soulier to Princeton. So there's a few guys right there that could potentially be attractive enough for a team, like the London Knights or the Barrie Colts or somebody like that, that could end up finding a way to a league like that or a team like that. But the teams have to want them. And that's the key thing, is that they have to want them. They have to look into them and see whether or not they're interested. And the players have to show that same interest back and forth to them. But now it's going to lead to a much more aggressive push for CHL and, also the OJHL coaches and all across the CJHL and the junior A landscape because of the fact that this ruling is now in place. And for my estimation, I think this is a good thing for the players. Great to have options for them, which is the key thing. Before, you only were allowed to play basically one single second of an exhibition game or a shift in a preseason game in the CHL, and your eligibility was done for the rest of your career, where now it's gone completely the opposite end of the spectrum, but now there's much more options for the players, which is great for the league and for player autonomy for sure. But now it's just going to lead to coaches in leagues like the OJHL. They're going to have to be a lot more aggressive, more aggressive than they probably were in trying to attract elite level players.
But that's, at the end of the day, it's all about the development of these players and offering them more paths. And they've got more paths now than they will ever have before. At the end of the day, that's a positive, isn't it? That's what we really should be looking at.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest thing about it. So especially for the older guys, like the 19 and the 20-year-olds that maybe, couldn't play in junior, well, they couldn't get NCAA eligibility. And that was the key thing when they played, even again, that one single second of a preseason game. And if they played a season or what have you, they lost eligibility. And if they came back here to a league like the OJ, they could not go back there, and because their eligibility was gone. And now this led to them having to go to a league like U Sports, which again, great level hockey, good bang for your buck entertainment wise, but it just wasn't the same thing as the NCAA. So now for the Division I schools, it's so huge to have not only a chance for their commitments to play at 18, 19 in the CHL, then come there at 20 years old. It's also great for the guys that played major junior for 3-4 years. And then not only do they get a chance to continue to play there, they also get a chance to go NCAA, which is incredible stuff. And
it's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned U Sports. I mean, we're going to move on from this, but I was going to say it's going to be interesting to see because a team like the UNB Reds last year, who had one of the best university teams I think Canadian university hockey has ever seen, I would put them up against any of the top NCAA Division I programs. I think they went undefeated all last year. You're not quite sure if that kind of stuff is going to happen anymore, the kind of talent that they're going to be able to draw with these change. But it's going to be fascinating to watch down the road, no question about it. And again, the development path for players just got that much better, and that's what I'm excited about anyway. So let's move on to the league, though. Thanks for your thoughts on that. I do appreciate it. The latest CHL rankings came out, and just go over them real quick. Leamington at number 4, Trenton at number 7, Halliburton is number 8, Collingwood sits at number 16. Let's talk about Trenton Golden Hawks, who you cover very closely with your TV. To nobody's surprise, they are up near the top of the league once again. They currently lead the East at the moment. Just tell us about the Hawks, what you've seen so far, and the kind of season they've had.
Yeah, well, the Trenton Golden Hawks, as they have been the last several seasons, even dating back before the COVID-19 pandemic, they're right there at the top again. And it doesn't seem like it matters who the coach is, whether it's Jerome Dupont, whether it's Thomas Milne before, whether it was Peter Goulet, whether it's Jerome again, whether it's Derek Smith. This team continues to succeed on the on just every aspect in terms of their recruiting and their offensive nature, and the guys that they get, like mentioned those guys earlier, some of them like Matt Soulier and Jacob Zhu and Joey Bremer, and then of course guys like David Fournier, who could be a very hot commodity for Division I school. Corbin Roach, the captain, who's been around for 4 years. You got Teo Artichuk, and just a long list of players. Cooper Matthews, and then on D, Trevor McDowell back from the OHL's North Bay Battalion. So, and it's right from the net out too. You got Brady Spry, who's one of the league's top goalies so far, on the shelf right now. But then you bring in a guy like Ryan Sanborn from the United States. He posts back-to-back shutouts, gets his first couple of wins, and Trenton continues to roll on a big long winning streak of 7 games. So for Trenton, I mean, Derek Smith, he's just a great recruiter and a guy that is a little bit on the younger side for a coach, just into his 40s. So he can relate to the players very well. He's got that Division I experience. He's got the NCAA experience, along with the NHL experience as well, from the Calgary Flames and the Ottawa Senators. So the biggest thing with him is he knows how to speak to his players. He knows how to get the most out of them. And at the end of the day, the Trenton Golden Hawks, I mean, there's a reason why they've been in back-to-back OJHL finals under Derek and Jerome Dupont as well. It's a team that knows how to rise to the occasion when they need to, and they've got such a balanced offensive attack that it's hard to stop any one or two players from succeeding, and it's making for another outstanding, entertaining season down in the hangar.
Looking for their first Buckland Cup, correct me if I'm wrong, since the 2015-16 season, which blows my mind when I think about it. Of course, they did win the Dudley in 16-17. That was as the host, though. It's crazy for me to think about that. It's been, 9 years now since they've won about nine seasons since they've won a championship with Trenton's tradition. But yeah, they're certainly on track to possibly remedy that this season. You mentioned Fournier leads the team in scoring, second in the OJHL behind Colton Smith of the Leamington Flyers, 38 points. He's in his third year with the Hawks now, on pace to have his best season so far, Brock.
He certainly is, and he's a guy that a lot of NHL, North American Hockey League interest from a lot of teams, and he was the type of guy that could, again, rise to the occasion. 25 points in 20 games he had in last year's playoffs after a 50-plus point regular season. So for David Fournier, he's not the biggest guy. He's only about 5'8", but he is a bulldog on the puck, and when he gets a hold of it and he gets into the offensive zone, there's no telling where opposing teams' defenses might be. They're going to be turned inside out with a guy like him playing the offensive game, and he's just an incredible puck mover and a guy that has a little bit of grit in him, like I said, and Derek Smith, again, has put him out there in every kind of situation to succeed, whether it's power play or penalty kill or last minute of a game, you need a goal, you're down by one, he's out there. You got a lead you need to protect, he's out there. And again, that's the kind of attitude that he brings as a guy that will be up for anything to play in a good situation where you need to, because he's been just an incredible piece. And again, he's a true player that developed over the course of 3 years in Trenton, which is amazing. And he started out, remember, I don't think in his first year, it was in 2022-23, I don't think he scored in the first 10 or 15 games of the regular season. And then all of a sudden he just started heating up, and Jerome Dupont stuck with him even during his early struggles. Jerome stuck with him in 2022-23, saw a lot of potential and a lot of fight in him, and look at where it is now. It's made him now. It's really paid off. And Fournier certainly, like I said earlier, should be a prime candidate for a Division I school somewhere.
So the next guy I was going to talk about, he's an interesting case because he got picked up from the Erie Otters last season, Teo Artichuk. He really found a home in Trenton. He was able to develop his game, 34 points in just 22 games this season after having a great year last year with the Hawks as well. 34 points, 22 games, tied for 6th in league scoring. What have you seen from Teo? And also, he could be an interesting case here because, he played some time in Erie for, I believe, parts of 3 seasons with the Otters, didn't quite catch on, but now dominating in the OJHL. And now all of a sudden, despite the fact that he's played in the OHL, he's a guy who's been able to develop his game in Trenton, and he'll have an opportunity to get an NCAA Division I scholarship as well, Brock.
You're absolutely right. And for Teo Artichuk, again, another one of those guys very similar in build to that of Fournier. He's not a very big guy, but he has the heart of a lion. And when he gets in front of the net, he's a hard guy to move because he's got extra build on him. He's very stocky, and he's a strong guy to move off the puck. And also he's got that wicked shot too, which really helps him score a lot, and he puts himself in a good position to gain points. With every time he's in a good position to try and score, he's going to take a shot. And for Teo Artichuk, absolutely, a Division I commitment could be in his cards if schools really key in on him, because as you said, that that agreement kind of goes both ways. So for Teo Artichuk, another guy that Trenton was so fortunate to have back. And again, with that top 6 that's forming of him and Soulier and Roach and Cooper Matthews and Fournier and Bramer, it's going to be awfully difficult to figure out how to beat that Trenton team, because again, already they're one of the top offensive teams in the league, and in fact have been at the top in terms of number of goals scored. And it's thanks in large part to a guy like Teo Artichuk, who also has a great attitude off the ice, in the sense that he wanted to come to Trenton and play for a winning team. And it seemed like it's really paid off after coming over from Erie last year.
Let's move to Trenton's arch nemesis, just 30 minutes down Highway 33, the Wellington Dukes. a solid, if unspectacular start to the season, I think we could say, at least by Wellington standards, where they are high. There are big expectations every year in Wellington. By no means a bad season so far, but they're sixth in the West, 26 points. They'll be battling it out for a playoff spot this season unless they really turn it on as we get into January. But tell us about the Duke's performance so far this season.
Yeah, so for Wellington, it's been a bit of a chaotic year so far. Again, they're 13-8. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now, but starting off right from the bat was just a little bit of a stuttery start, I guess you'd say. They got a lot of guys back from last year. They had more guys back, obviously, last year or this year than they did the year before, and there was only maybe a couple players back for Kent Lewis to try and film. But for Kent Lewis, he's been a guy that's done an exceptional job of really filling the roles well in terms of his recruiting and signing guys and everything like that. But the biggest one is Corey Jewett, a captain. He returned from last year. He was one of the early pickups for Kent Lewis when he came flying over from BC to try and clean up the mess, I guess you could say, that was left following all the moves. But Corey Jewett was an incredible player last year. 30 goals, 67 points, which was tops on the team. And also really with him, Will Mitchell, Nick DiPaolo, and Ethan Quick and Ryan Scopp, all guys that really boosted the offense last year. 67 points during the season. He had another handful in the playoffs. And then coming in this season, again, leading the team in scoring, 25 points. And if you ask anybody in Wellington what Corey Jewett is like off the ice, what he brings to the table in the dressing room and in the community, they'd say top-notch kid, just a top-notch kid and a great player on the ice and a guy that leads very well. But I know we're going to talk about him a little more, but this Wellington team.
Well, you covered it. You covered it pretty much, but I was going to say he's been fantastic, but it's really been a sort of a scoring by committee approach for most of the season, isn't it? Jewett's not even in the top 20 of league scoring this season, but they've had a balanced approach. A lot of guys really stepping up this season in terms of scoring.
For sure, and you're absolutely right. You make a good point there, Alex. Ryan Scott, 25 points as well on the season. He's one of those guys that was picked up in a trade partway through last season with the Markham Royals, and it was a shrewd move because they got him for a player that wasn't coming to Wellington. They ended up trading him to Markham. They got Scott for him, and boy, what an incredible pickup he was. 29 points in 24 games last year. He's got another 25 this year, and a guy that has probably one of the most accurate, wickedest shots in the league. And he's been an incredible story for sure coming over. Young guys like Ethan Murray and Tyler Sakalas, two newcomers, have really started to pick up their game very well. And it's incredible to see their development. Again, Sakalas coming from the United States, Murray coming from the Hill Academy Prep. And those two guys have really flourished. Well, Zach Mascard as well, another shrewd pickup, acquired from the Pickering Panthers. And he has a few goals. He's already passed his goal total from last year, and he's been an incredible pickup. There's a bunch of other guys as well on the back end. Colin Smith returns. He's an assistant captain this year. Again, another kid that would go to the wall for your team to try and win. Cole Ellis has been impressive on the back end as a young defenseman. So both the original goalies are gone from the start of the year. Noah Davis came in. He's gone now. Dario Cantini is in from out west in BC, and then they brought in Jacob Brown, a Yarker native, so that's just east of here in Kingston, near Kingston, I should say, from the Flint Firebirds of the OHL. So there's a bit of nervy moments for the Wellington folks here. Goaltending has always been a strength, and Jack was playing exceptionally well, and he gets a great opportunity out in BC. But now it's Dario Cantini and Jacob Brown's crease, and both of them looking pretty good so far. Picked up a couple of wins, 3 straight on the weekend. So both looking impressive so far, and now we'll see what ends up transpiring moving forward, because it seems like the goalie situation is now stabilized for now.
Under control. We'll get more in depth about Coburg on a later show, but I just want to quickly touch on them. Currently hanging on to the eighth and final playoff spot out east. Losing 2 superstars this season in Trevor Hoskin and Andy Reist obviously was going to be a big blow to their offense, and it has dropped significantly since last year. But what have you seen from the Cougars so far?
Yeah, Coburg's about flirting with the 500 mark so far. And again, it's a team that will have to really rebuild, pick up the pieces after a great run last year. They finished 5th in the East Conference. They go all the way to the conference final. They lose to Trenton. They pushed them to 6 games. That was the only team in the first 3 rounds that really took a chip out of Trenton and maybe slowed them down going into the final against Collingwood. But an incredible run for them. Trevor Hoskin already off to an outstanding start, won Rookie of the Month in October for Niagara University. He's paired with Andy Reese as well. 195 points combined last year. So good luck trying to fill those offensive shoes. But so far, it seems like Coburg is trying to go for the retool. And I know they picked up goaltender Tommy O'Donnell from the NAHL and a couple other of key players. But for now, it's just Connor Armour is going to have to find a way to boost his team, and again, another one of those young coaches that does a really good job of giving his team a chance to win and being close to the guys, which is exactly what you need as a young coach. But Coburg is going to be a fun team to watch down the stretch, and already looking forward to seeing those battles with Wellington and Trenton moving forward as well.
Absolutely. We're running out of time. I wanted to touch on quickly the CCHL OJHL All-Star event, which is coming up next week in Smiths Falls. The OJHL rosters were released. I mean, it's just a plethora of stars on there, obviously, but the best the OJ has to offer. What are some of the names that really stand out to you on that list that you're looking forward to watching play?
Yeah, so the All-Stars, again, a lot of them very well deserving. I mentioned Matt Soulier as well, touched on him a bit. One of the leading goal scorers in the OJHL, and again, a Princeton commit too. So it's unbelievable to see what this kid can do. He's got that quick shot, and he's a tough guy to really stop when he gets himself into those close scoring areas. Not the fastest guy maybe on the ice, but a guy that really is going to impress. And of course, the other 3 Trenton guys, Artichuk, Fournier, Roach, all-stars. And also very interested to see the goaltenders, both Leamington Flyers netminders in. So I haven't seen them much being from, I'm out here in the East, they're out West, but Marcus Vandenberg and Trey Altman, not too often you see 2 all-star goalies from the same team, of course, split on opposite teams, but I'll be interested to see them play. And of course, many, many others, but it's hard to pick just 1 or 2, but certainly the local guys and the goaltenders as well.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's no age restriction on this, so you're seeing all the big names out there, including a guy like Colton Smith as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how they stack up against, CCHL competition. It's a very strong year for the OJHL, I feel, in terms of some of the players, including, of course, having 5 players that were ranked in the NHL players to watch list. The young guns on there as well. Simon Wang, we're going to see. Kapajaritis, we're going to see. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Brock, I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much for taking the time today to come on the show. And we will definitely do it later on in the season as well. Thanks for the time, and have a good one.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Alex. And all the best of luck throughout the rest of the season.
And that is going to wrap it up for today's show. A huge thank you to my guests, OJHL Commissioner Marty Savoy, and your TV's Brock Ormond. And just remember, you can stay up to date with everything that's going on in the OJHL by checking out the league's different social media outlets. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next week.